Hi everybody and welcome to my little YouTube channel. If you're new to this channel, my name's Amanda. I'm a diagnosed autistic adult and I was diagnosed a few years ago. If you don't know what autism is a neurodevelopmental condition. It's a genetic condition, a condition that we're born with. We have our entire lives, our entire existence. It's not something that we pick up and it's not something that we grow out of. It's something that we have for forever. And a lot of autistic people, although we do something called masking, where we camouflage our autistic traits in order to come off as not being autistic in a neurotypical world, a lot of us can suffer the detrimental effects of autism, such as dislike of eye contact, anxiety, depression, and I'll go into that a bit more in this video. So one of the things that really affects me as an autistic person, and one of the symptoms of autism that can affect a lot of us, a lot of autistic people find this very challenging, and that is understanding other people. And that can be the communication side of it. So because we have delays in processing of communication, somebody might ask us a question and it can take us that little bit longer to respond. Or we might go mute in social situations. So we might just not talk or answer back at all. And that can be again due to that communication processing delay. A lot of us find that really challenging. And add to that, autistic people, we're quite vulnerable by nature. Even autistic adults, even the autistic adults who are the best maskers in the world, the best actors, who you would assume are coping fine, can find social communication challenging. And it's understanding the thoughts, feelings and intentions of other people, because let's not forget, not everybody has our best intentions at heart. Another sign and symptom of autism is getting incredibly anxious in social situations. This really affects me, and that's why you'll find me in places like this where I'm around nature and I'm just around birds and around wildlife and I can just be myself. There's no added pressure on us as autistic people when we're around nature or when we're by ourselves. We don't have to answer questions, we don't have to make eye contact, we don't have to be conscious of what our body's doing in that social situation, we don't have to worry about offending other people or making conversation or saying certain things that might come across rude or seemingly blunt to others when we don't actually mean that. So a lot of us, we find socialising and groups and large teams of people, especially I at work, when I worked in the National Health Service for nearly 20 years, and I found having to participate in big team meetings, sometimes nearly 100 people in a team meeting, incredibly stressful because I was having to navigate my way through all of that social understanding. And then add on to that my communication delays and difficulties that I've just mentioned previously. So if you are feeling incredibly anxious in large groups of people or social situations, it could be that you have autism. Now, just because you have anxiety in social situations doesn't mean to say you're autistic, but it's one of the main ones up there. And if I could give £1 million to get rid of one of my symptoms of autism, it would definitely be anxiety. And so you can just imagine how incredibly challenging and incredibly difficult it can be for us as autistic people, just making friends and initiating friendships and knowing what do we say to somebody when we meet them, or which eye do I look in? I have that problem when I'm looking somebody in the eyes. I don't actually know which eye to look into. I'm worrying about the social communication side of it and the delays in communication and the anxiety around mingling with other people and whether I'm offending somebody. So just being able to initiate conversation with somebody and start a friendship can be really challenging for me. And if it can be challenging for you as well, it could be a sign of autism. And then let's add on to that the difficulty with socialising and making friends. And that isn't only because we get really anxious in those sort of situations that I've just described, but sometimes we can come across as seemingly really blunt or rude in conversations, and we don't mean to. And that's because autistic people, we're very literal thinkers, and we often think outside the box. And so we tend to give, as a result, very literal answers back. And so we can unintentionally cause offence to people, and that can really isolate us from society. A lot of us as autistic people can really struggle in expressing our emotions in terms of how we're thinking and how we're feeling. And this can happen when doctors and nurses, for example, ask an autistic person, how are you feeling? And a lot of the time, because we can't formulate the words to describe how we're feeling, a lot of us will either say, I don't know, because that's the general answer that people give when they just don't know how to tell other people or express to other people their inner emotions. So we'll either give you the response that I don't know, or we'll give you a completely inappropriate response, or we might just say yes, I'm fine, when in fact we're not fine, and we might be feeling incredibly depressed, anxious or isolated. And that can be really confusing for hospitals and doctors and friends and family of that autistic person, because then we can go without the appropriate support and help, because society around us can think we're doing okay when we're not. So I think finding it really challenging, trying to identify with our thoughts, feelings and emotions is one of the big ones up there in terms of autism symptoms. A lot to the vast majority of autistic people, we love routine and ritual, and I absolutely need routine and ritual in my life. And I need order, and I don't like uncertainty. And if you ask most autistic people, they'll say that they agree that one of the things they need to get by in life, in work, university, college, if you've got a child with autism in a home setting, is routine and ritual. So a lot of us, we have sticky notes, or we use Alexa to remind us to do things, or we have a set structure. And if that structure changes, if it changes for me, if something happens, then I'll either get really upset and I'll give somebody the silent treatment, or I'll have a massive meltdown. So I don't really do well with unpredictability, and that didn't really sit very well with my previous managers when I was at work. Another sign of autism as well is talking about potentially inappropriate things. Now, what might come across as being inappropriate to you or somebody without autism, someone that's, say, neurotypical, might not be inappropriate to us as autistic people. So a lot of us have special interests, and take, for example, my special interest many years ago was prepping or preparedness, otherwise known as doomsday prepping. And so I used to buy gas masks, military gas masks. My latest one's a Fushida gas mask with a massive box of 40mm NATO filters. And discussing nuclear, chemical, biological stuff at work, for example, can raise red flags or can raise alarm bells to colleagues and to friends and family. And obviously at the time, they didn't know or associate that I was talking about that because it was a special interest and it was autism. So of course it got me into a little bit of bother. Obviously I'm innocent because I'm autistic, so I was at the time completely innocent, but we can talk about these inappropriate things to others, and if other people don't know we've got autism, it can isolate us, because sometimes we can get really passionate about special interests, and so we can talk for long periods of time about them. And you can just imagine if we tried to initiate friendships with somebody else and we was constantly talking about our special interest, the other person might think, I'm so sick of hearing about this special interest because she just won't shut up about it. And so I just won't invite her to a party anymore, or we won't invite her to that Christmas get together or that family outing. And so it can really isolate us from others. So that is definitely something that I've done in the past, and if you can relate, you're not on your own. Another sign and symptom of autism is a dislike of eye contact, or finding it difficult to make eye contact, and then finding it hard to maintain eye contact. It's one thing that I really struggle with. When I'm looking somebody in the eyes, I don't know which eye to look in. That's going to sound really strange. Leave a comment below, let me know, are you the same? I feel like when I'm looking somebody in the eyes, I'm going cross-eyed, and then I feel like, am I going cross-eyed? And has the person noticed I'm going cross-eyed? And then I'm more aware of eye contact and what my face is doing and how I'm looking, and then I feel like the other person's going to think I'm strange, or that they're going to know that I've got autism, and so it causes this snowball effect of anxiety. So I find it really difficult making eye contact. Although I'll do it, it's pressured, it's fake, and it's stressful. But a lot of people can think, well, if somebody's making eye contact, they mustn't be autistic. But that is not the case. That is absolutely so far from true. It's untrue. A lot of autistic people, although we make eye contact, it doesn't mean to say that we like it or that we're comfortable with it. I hate it. And I actually really don't know what this thing is about neurotypical people or the general population needing to make eye contact with somebody. If you can imagine like a bull or an animal, if you make eye contact with a lot of animals in the wild, they see that as an aggressive thing, and so they react with that fight-flight response, usually a fight response, and that's no different to how autistic people feel. We have that anxiety, that fight-flight response, and I don't really get this need to see my face. I used to have it when I was at work in the National Health Service, because it's so socially acceptable to meet somebody in person and have a face-to-face contact with somebody, a discussion. I never really understood what this need is to look at my face or look me in the eyes. I can do exactly the same by just talking to you on the phone. We can cut out all of that face-to-face stuff. Just leave it. I don't want it. And another thing, as part of the social and communication side of it, a lot of us don't understand the personal boundaries and the personal space situation, and so sometimes we can get too close to people's personal space when we're talking to them, and it can be incredibly off-putting to other people, and so it can really isolate us. One of the things I really hate, and I'm sorry for the people in my life that do it, and I forgive you and I love you to bits, but I still hate it, and that is hugging. I'm sure we all know that one person in our lives that'll come up to us and just hug us randomly every time they see us. Sometimes they squeeze us really hard as well, and for me personally, it's too much in my personal space, and it makes me feel really uncomfortable. I don't know what to do with my body, and my body just sort of goes stiff and robotic, or I'll make an excuse up like I don't want to get makeup on you, which I know is really bad, and I don't mean anything negative by that, and I don't mean to upset or offend anybody, but I just don't like that close personal contact. So if you're one of those people that do come up and hug me, I really love you to bits today. I'm sorry, but even with my dad, sometimes if he kisses me, I put my head down so he kisses me on my forehead. I just don't like it. I find it incredibly uncomfortable. I know that doesn't go for every autistic person. Some people with autism love hugging and kissing or close contact, but I am the exception to the rule, and I don't like it. If you know an autistic person or you have autism yourself, you'll probably agree that the vast majority of us have special interests. And whereas most people in society have special interests, autistic people, myself included, we can take it to the extreme. And I just said previously that one of my special interests was doomsday prepping. And I have all sorts of interests. I love birds. I've always had an interest in birds. I've come up here to the place where I am now to feed the birds, as you can hear them, because I've just fed them, and to be around the birds. I absolutely love crows. Crows are my special interest. They're the most intelligent birds, but that's for another video or for no video at all, because you're not tuned in to hear about crows, and I better stop talking about crows because otherwise I'll just keep talking about crows. So let's just stop talking about crows. But most autistic people have special interests, which can be really positive, because if we have a special interest that we excel at, we can go to university and study that subject. We can become little mini experts in the area, and we can do really well in our like employment pathway if it's about our special interest. Sometimes it can be challenging for those people that love an autistic person, because it can come across, like I've said previously, that our special interest is a little bit unusual. So obviously if you've got a loved one, or you've got a friend or family member or someone at work that has autism and they've got a seemingly unusual special interest, then it might be worthwhile just probing a little bit more and asking the autistic person why they're interested in that unusual subject. But usually there's nothing to worry about. I mean, obviously having a conversation with that autistic person and just making sure that everything's okay and there's no concerns to be raised. But usually our special interest is a real positive thing, and I have to participate in my special interest every day in order to feel happy in my life. It sustains me. So just being here with the birds and listening to the birds, and I sing to the crows and I talk to the crows, although that might come across as being really strange to other people, because I do get some odd looks when I'm singing to the crows in public. I have to do it because it really helps my mental health. Leave a comment below. Let me know what's your special interest, and can you top the buying gas masks? Coming back to what I previously said, my understairs storage supply of military gas masks and biological suits and all that sort of stuff. What is your special interest, and can you top the strangeness of that one? And I think another thing that you just need to watch out for is when our special interests turn into obsessions and compulsions. And a lot of autistic people, myself included, I have OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and that's like checking my front door, checking that, even though I don't use the gas cooker, because in case it sets on fire, I still check it 500, 600, 700, 2,000 million times a day, and I take photographs of it before I go out so I can check it when I'm out 200,000 billion, 1,000, 100 times a day to make sure that it's definitely off, even though I've not used it. So we do have obsessions and compulsions and rituals and ruminations, but our special interests can sometimes take over our lives, and we can become a little bit obsessed, and so we can lose sleep, because instead of sleeping we can stay up at night time and learn about our special interest, and then we can forget to eat because we're doing our special interest instead of sitting down and having dinner. And so it can have a detrimental effect on our well-being, but in the vast majority of cases it's really positive. And before I finish off with this video, I just want to discuss masking, because although I've mentioned a lot of the common signs of autism, and that is the same signs of autism in adults as it is in children, sometimes adults can be better at masking, although children can mask or camouflage as well, but sometimes adults can be a lot better at doing that than children. And then autistic women, or if you're female and you think that you have autism, we can be even better at masking, because we've learned to camouflage our autistic traits in order to better fit in groups of people in society. I always use the word, it's like that female clique. It's that being accepted in a female group or a social situation, and so we learn to copy other people and mask. So it might be that if you've got somebody in your life that's struggling with anxiety and depression, but it looks like they're making eye contact or they're maintaining conversation or they're hugging you, don't necessarily think that they've not got autism because they're doing these things. It might be that that person's just learned to mask, otherwise known as camouflaging. They're hiding their autistic traits, and so it could be that they still have autism. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this little video, and now you're a little bit more clued up with regards to what autism is and some of the signs and symptoms of autism. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider hitting like, commenting and subscribing, and I shall see you next time for my next vlog. Bye!